Do you remember when crossing that California-Nevada state line was like passing through a portal? When those three titans of the desert shimmered into view like a promised land, and you could almost taste the affordable freedom just minutes away? The promise of good times, cheap rooms, and a genuine dance with Lady Luck. But if you've made that drive down Interstate 15 recently, you've witnessed the aftermath. Primm, Nevada. It was once the vibrant, roaring gateway welcoming every hopeful gambler from California to the promised land of Vegas. Now, it's a ghost town, and I don't throw that word around. Whiskey Pete's has been dark since December of 2024. Buffalo Bills followed, its lights going out in July of 2025. Now, a single casino gasps for air in a town that once boasted 3 booming properties and an outlet mall overflowing with shoppers. Remember the families queued up for a thrill on the Desperado roller coaster? Today, we're digging into what truly transpired in Primm. How does a town that drew in tens of thousands of souls every single weekend become a graveyard of vacant storefronts and silent casinos? But the real question is, has the final curtain fallen on Primm? Or is there something else stirring, something larger, quietly taking shape out in the desert's silence? This story isn't just about Primm. It's a eulogy for the way the Vegas experience has been warped. A story for the loyalists who built this town, for the regulars who faithfully kept the lights burning for decades. So settle in, because the fate of Primm is a stark warning for every Vegas veteran left standing. Let's journey back to understand the soul of what Primm once was, and to feel the full weight of why its demise cuts so deep. The tale begins in the 1950s, with a man who saw potential in the dust, Ernest Primm. According to records unearthed by the Nevada Independent, Ernest acquired 400 acres of desolate desert right on the California-Nevada border for a mere $12,000. The federal government later granted him another 400 acres. This wasn't exactly beachfront property, it was sun-scorched wasteland. But Ernest possessed the vision others lacked. He saw the one thing that mattered: location. He started with a humble 12-room motel, a coffee shop, and a handful of slot machines. And the people began to arrive. That first outpost was simply named State Line, because that was its very essence. A stark demarcation between two different worlds. On one side, California's constraints, on the other, Nevada's intoxicating freedom. After Ernest's passing in 1981, his son Gary Primm inherited the legacy, but his ambitions soared even higher. In 1990, Gary erected the Prima Donna Resort, which we now know as Primm Valley. Then, in 1994, he unleashed Buffalo Bills, crowned by that legendary Desperado roller coaster, a steel sentinel that would pierce the desert skyline for miles. According to SFGate, the town officially shed its state line name, becoming Primm in 1996 to honor the founding family. And this is the part of the story that mattered to us, the real players. Primm was the antithesis of the Strip. You wouldn't find any $25 minimums here. There were no soul-crushing resort fees, no charges for parking your car. You could snag a room for $30 a night, fuel up on a 99-cent McDonald's breakfast, and still have a decent bankroll. The odds felt honest. The comps were genuine. You were treated like a valued guest, not just another mark to be squeezed. The video poker machines actually paid out, none of this 6-5 jacks or better garbage that's become the standard insult today. Buffalo Bills had 85 bonus poker machines, boasting a 99.17% payback. Vegas Advantage confirms it. The pit bosses knew your name. The cocktail waitresses let you savor the moment. This was true hospitality, not some cold corporate efficiency metric. The 1990s and the early 2000s were the zenith, Primm's golden age. Then, according to Casino.org, MGM Grand swept in, purchasing the properties from the Primm family in 1998 for a staggering $612 million. That was $276 million in stock, plus another $336 million in assumed debt. A figure like that tells a story. Primm wasn't just successful, it was a veritable cash cow. The Fashion Outlets Mall, opened in 1998, was a spectacle in itself. boasting nearly 100 stores in its prime. We're talking big names like H&M, Nike, and Coach. Families made it a destination. They'd stop for the shopping, brave the roller coaster, gaze at the notorious Bonnie and Clyde death car at Whiskey Pete's, and then settle in for the night. It was Vegas, but on our terms. And Southern California couldn't get enough. The weekend pilgrimage was so reliable you could set your watch by the Interstate 15 backups, a slow-moving river of cars all peeling off at the Primm exit. So, what broke this perfect machine? The answer, my friends, is a tangled one. It was a perfect storm. A convergence of corporate avarice, seismic political shifts, and a new wave of competition that ultimately crushed the regular folks like us. It began in 2007, when MGM offloaded the Primm properties to Herbst Gaming, later to become Affinity Gaming, for $400 million, as reported by Vegas Advantage. But here's the cruel twist of fate. This deal closed on the very precipice of the 2008 financial crisis. By 2009, Herbst Gaming had declared bankruptcy. Affinity Gaming rose from the ashes in 2011, and for those of us who've seen this movie before, we know exactly what bankruptcy really means. Costs will be cut. It means deferred maintenance and skeleton crews. Suddenly, the rides ran less often, the quality of the buffets plummeted, the comps all but vanished. Vegas Advantage noted that by the 2010s, Primm was already visibly struggling with staffing and basic upkeep. The monorail that once stitched the properties together went silent. Of the golf courses, one shuttered completely, the other was left to wither. But the knockout punch was delivered from just across the border, California's tribal casinos. And this, right here, is where the system itself turned its back on the Nevada border towns. In March of 2000, California voters passed Proposition 1A, a move that unleashed tribal casinos, allowing them to operate virtually unlimited slot machines and card games. According to the California Legislative Analyst's Office, before Proposition 1A, tribes were running about 20,000 slot machines across roughly 40 casinos, but by 2006, that figure had detonated to over 58,000 machines. Fast forward to 2025, and we're talking well over 100,000. And here is the brutal reality of what that meant for Primm. The Southern California gambler, Primm's lifeblood, now had a choice. A 30-minute drive from home instead of a 3 or 4 hour trek to the border. The Los Angeles Times reports that just one of these places, Yamava Resort and Casino in Highland, California, now operates 7,000 slot machines on its own, transforming it into the West Coast's undisputed casino titan, boasting 4,000 more machines than any single Vegas property. You see, Morongo, Pachanga, and San Manuel, they were barely on the map in the 1990s. Yamava itself was born as a humble bingo hall back in 1986. The official record on Wikipedia notes that by 1994, it had already swelled into a 100,000 square foot casino. Then, in 2021, a $760 million expansion sealed the deal, adding a towering 17-floor hotel and 1,700 new slots. A 2003 ICT news report sounded the alarm, warning that drive-in oases like Primm, Gene, and Laughlin were living on borrowed time, soon to be eclipsed by California's competition. Gaming analyst William Thompson laid it out plain. Roughly 20% of Vegas visitors were making that pilgrimage up Interstate 15 from Southern California. And as new casinos began to bloom in San Diego and along that very desert artery, the novelty of Nevada's state-line towns, that first taste of "you can gamble now," was destined to fade into memory. Affinity Gaming's own chief executive officer, Scott Butera, confessed as much during a Nevada Gaming Commission hearing in February of 2025. The Nevada Independent captured his words, quoting him as saying that 2 decades ago, Primm faced no real challenge from Southern California's tribal casinos, a region now home to 45% of the state's Indian casino slot machines. Now, he admitted they have their own formidable casinos, quite large and quite nice. The regular people who once religiously filled Primm's resorts every weekend weren't being traders, they were just being smart. Why burn 4 hours on a round trip and torch $50 in gas when you could find the same machines, better parking, and comparable perks just 30 minutes from your own doorstep? Then, the Great Recession arrived and consumed what little was left. According to 963 KKLZ's reporting, the great economic collapse of 2007 to 2009 delivered a mortal blow to the small resort town. Hotels stood like vacant tombs. The outlet mall bled tenants. Livelihoods simply vanished. The value of homes in Southern California had imploded, which meant fewer people had any disposable cash for a weekend escape. And unlike the Strip properties, which could absorb the hit with conventions, high-end nightclubs, and a flood of international tourists, Primm had no safety net. The town's very population, as Wikipedia chronicles, plummeted from 1,132 souls in 2007 to a mere 650 by 2020. That's a staggering 43% of its people gone in just 13 years. The outlet mall found itself in a new fight, with fresh competition opening at the south end of Las Vegas Boulevard and just south of Barstow. The Nevada Independent reported that by the early 2010s, the once teeming 371,000 square foot mall was becoming a ghost town in its own right. And then, the global health crisis brought the world to a standstill. Primm went dark. Completely. And that's the brutal truth about these small casino towns. Once the people stop coming, they start forgetting you ever existed. When the world flickered back on, Affinity made a cold, calculated decision. Consolidate everything into a single point of survival. According to Vegas Advantage, Whiskey Pete's closed its doors for good on December 17, 2024. Buffalo Bill's was shuttered on July 7, 2025. The sprawling outlet mall now clings to life with just one tenant, a thrift store named Saints Thrift, a detail captured by the Nevada Independent. In a letter to Clark County, Affinity officials laid the facts bare, explaining it was no longer feasible to keep all 3 casino properties staffed, supported, and open to the public around the clock. SF Gates reporting confirmed the grim reality. Traffic at the state line was overwhelmingly a weekend affair, and simply not enough to sustain 3 full-time casino operations. Let me paint you a picture of Primm as it stands in 2025, pieced together from recent first-hand accounts. The Desperado roller coaster, once heralded as one of the world's tallest and fastest, has been silent since 2019. Casino.org reports it just sits there, a steel skeleton rusting against the desert sky, its tracks still weaving through the roof of Buffalo Bill's, a silent, decaying monument to a more glorious time. The log flume ride shares its fate, equally abandoned. Urban explorers on YouTube have documented the post-apocalyptic scene, the stagnant, murky water, the peeling paint, the ubiquitous warning signs. The outlet mall is a hollowed-out shell. To walk its corridors is to see only empty storefronts, flaking paint, and that one lone thrift store, hanging on by a prayer. The food court is perpetually dark. Weeds defiantly push their way through cracks in the vast, empty parking lot. During a November 2024 visit chronicled by the Nevada Independent, a reporter discovered Whiskey Pete's casino floor had been mostly cannibalized. Just empty voids where table games and slot machines once sang their siren song, with only a few hundred machines left humming near the entrance. And Buffalo Bill's Star of the Desert Arena, that 6,500-seat venue that once echoed with concerts every weekend, fell into an eerie silence after July of 2025. Vegas Advantage noted that the first concert after Buffalo Bill's closure wasn't even on the books until August 30th. 2025. A full 7 weeks later, the arena had been a magnet for the Southern California Hispanic market, with acts curated specifically for that audience. But whispers and reports suggest that a federal presence along the state line has made some families think twice about making the trip, their legal status notwithstanding. Primm Valley Resort is the last soldier standing, but it's a ghost of its former self. An incident in July of 2024 reported by Casino.org perfectly illustrates the town's staffing crisis. A 70-year-old woman named Lydia Salmon simply walked into the Primm Valley cashier's cage, found it completely unmanned, and walked out with $625,000 in cash and $27,000 in chips. The cage was empty. She was only identified because police happened to have body cam footage from an unrelated visit weeks prior. That's how skeletal the operation had become. An employee named Morningstar, who's given 17 years of her life to Primm, told a reporter in July of 2024, according to Medium, that Primm Valley is down to just one bartender and one waitress. She said, some of the time there's no place to eat there, so no one really goes there anymore. And yet, the traffic still flows. An indifferent river of steel on Interstate 15. A river of some 51,000 cars flows past here daily, according to the Nevada Department of Transportation, but the river never stops. They just fly by, phantoms, chasing the Vegas lights or the California dream. Those three colossal buildings are now just the fleeting ghost in the rearview mirror. If this story found you, it's because Primm means something to you. Maybe it was the backdrop to a dozen road trips. Maybe you remember when it was a real destination, not just the roadside tombstone you blow past at 80. What happened to Primm is a eulogy for something bigger, the corporate assassination of Vegas loyalty. For decades, outposts like Primm didn't just survive, they thrived. Because they honored the regular guy. They offered affordable rooms, honest games, and real comps, not a nickel and dime shakedown. That model worked because it had respect. It was built on the simple truth that a gambler who feels seen comes back, and they don't come back alone. But the cold calculus of modern casino economics has no room for loyalty. It only bows to the quarterly earnings report. It's a machine built to squeeze every last cent from every soul that walks through the door. It worships metrics like average revenue per user, not Tony from Riverside, who made this his second home every month for 15 years. So when Primm got squeezed between the convenience of tribal casinos and the demands of corporate bean counters, the loyal customers, the very people who built the place, were caught in the crossfire. Affinity Gaming stared at their spreadsheets and the cold numbers talked back. 3 properties is too expensive. 1 property. That's the number that works. To hell with the employees who gave their lives to that place. To hell with the families who wove Primm into their traditions. To hell with the loyalists whose dollars kept those lights burning through feast and famine. This is the exact same betrayal we're seeing play out all over Vegas. Higher table minimums, slots so tight they squeak, resort fees, paid parking, comps that are a ghost of what they once were. The places that gave a damn are vanishing, replaced by a predatory system designed to bleed tourists dry on a one-time trip. You want to know what's really changed? Vegas used to know we had a choice. They fought for our business. Now they act like we should thank them for the privilege of losing our money. The slow death of Primm is a warning. A perfect microcosm of what's being stolen from the Vegas experience we knew and loved. But here's the twist in this sad tale. Primm actually fought back. Vegas Advantage reported that in 2025, Primm tried to make a stand, making several improvements to their games. The pay tables on video poker got a whole lot better. Buffalo Bills even rolled out machines with a 99.17% payback. They were handing out generous free play, and every report said the employees were as friendly and positive as ever. But it was a whisper in a hurricane, because when your competition is 30 minutes closer and you're fighting tribal casinos that don't pay a dime in state gaming taxes, throwing a few good hands doesn't matter if no one is there to see them, if no one is making that drive anymore.